Good morning. This will be video number 2 today. I'm going to do a quick video on building a MicroMini furnace. Not hard to do. Consists of a barrel, and this is electric welded seam tubing. You could go to like a muffler shop or something in town, one that does big rigs, highway rigs, or diesel equipment, because a piece of exhaust tubing, 4-inch exhaust tubing, or 3-inch would work just fine. Then I drill a hole at the top, and I drill a hole lower, and what this does is it allows me to put a torch in at 2 different levels, or to put the 2 torches in, and then when you put a taller mold like a gravity mold in there, it heats top and bottom, makes it a lot faster. I just did a video of a peach can furnace where I made a furnace out of a peach can, and turned out pretty good. Melted almost 2 ounces of silver in just a couple of minutes. I mean, you don't get much cheaper than that. This would be for someone that's going to be doing it on a regular basis. Then the torch holders. This is Schedule 80 pipe. I bore them on my lathe just to get the welded seam out of there, and then they're drilled and tapped at the outer edge for a 1032 thumb screw. So I do 2 of those. 8 by 4 by 4 flat bar becomes the bottom of the furnace. Works good. And then another piece of the tubing that's about 1.25 inches deep, and that will be the top. Castable refractory. This is really good stuff. Easy to use. You just don't want to put too much water in, and if you do, it just takes longer. And then I don't know what size this is, like a 5-ounce Dixie cup, little cup. It goes, I center it right inside the top, mix up the goo, put it in around holding that, and making sure I don't cave the sides in on it, although it doesn't matter. And this diameter right here that you end up with 1.25 inches up from the bottom really works well running 2 torches. During the peach can video, I actually had to open the hole a little bit in the top, but the main thing was, and it doesn't sound like it would work, but it made a difference, is I had to throttle back on the propane torch, and I could hear the combustion, and as I turned back, then all of a sudden the combustion got vigorous. So I had way too much fuel for the air I was allowing to escape. So that is critical. Then this tab, this is the handle melt bracket, and it just welds on to the edge. KO wool, that's the bottom. This piece will form right around and become the sidewalls. And for those of you that are allergic, I got just a simple dust mask and a pair of Walmart nitrile gloves. I used to buy the black ones off of the internet, but these don't rip when I put them on, where the black ones did. So I'm gonna just go ahead and weld one of these up. But I am gonna do is, I mean, when you weld this on, first of all, you want to make sure that you have the threaded part pointed out, and you have the top of the furnace, one hole is lower than the other. You want to have the thumb screw pointing up. Yeah, I have welded them on upside down before, and it's really aggravating, because then I had to drill them and tap them in place. So the top is close to the top and it points up. The one thing I'm gonna do is I have fixtures that I weld in. But you just take that under normal circumstances, you just take that on there, hold it with a pair of pliers, and weld it on. But to sell, I like things to reasonably look like someone cared when they welded it up. My welding is not pretty, but it's strong, so I'll get the welder turned on and we'll build one of these little Hummers. One of the things that I do is before I start to weld, I just take and quickly identify that I have all my places where I have the bottom at the bottom. I have the top at the top. And believe me, I make these 15 at a time, so when you're just grabbing them out of a pile, but sometimes the bottoms end up on the top. Senility, I can attribute it to being senile. That's all I can say. It's amazing how when you age, you do these silly little things. So, hoping like hell I don't destroy my camera. So what I'm going to do is line up the holes and the edges. The flat bar is cut, so it's exactly the width of the bottom, or close to exactly. And then I have the hole centered, and that will help me when I go to weld the plugs on, although I have a fixture here that I actually weld them on. It's got a bushing that goes inside the piece, and that bushing goes inside to here, and it lines them straight up. Again, just so when I sell it, it looks good. So I don't know what this is going to do to my camera. I'm hoping that it isn't too bad. So we'll get on the gloves. Got on the hood. And for the video, I'm only going to put 4 little welds in it. I don't want to. My welding table was actually the big canvas stretcher, and the top is aluminum, and the ground is hooked to the top, so with any luck all I should have to do is strike an arc on this and it'll go for it. So we got a tack. Everything is still reasonably in place. I'll go opposite the tack. Quarter. So now we got the bottom on. Now I full weld these to sell because just in case the hot gases would want to escape out the bottom, but that's going to have a KO wool pad in it, so it's not bad. This is an early piece of pipe. I'm going to go ahead and build this and send it to Aladdin, Pennsylvania. So the next step is I want to weld on the torch holders. So first, I'll get my channel locks. Okay, and I've positioned them right over the hole. One problem with a metal top is you have to have non-conducting pads for your welding rod to lay on. So we put that there, we get this. Since this is the top, we reasonably line that up. Not nice welding with your left hand. But we got a tack on there. Lined up good. Tack the bottom. And what do you know? The screw hole's actually pointing up. So now we take this one, we do the same routine. Only this one I'm going to hold with my left hand. We got the screw thread pointed up, and it's pointed towards the top. A little bit crooked. Good enough. Okay, next. We're going to build the handle. So what I'm going to do here to give myself a little advantage, again, not getting out the jigs, but I'm just going to use the clamp to hold it. Then I want to make sure I have the two holes pointing up. I'm going to line that up on there somewhat. It was crooked and I can't move it. So we'll do it again. Much better. Okay, and now for the tip, and the thing that most people don't see, is some refractory shrink. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to weld some dimples to the inside. So what we got there is, see that? Actually remembered that's going to be hot. It's going to have these dimples welded in it, and then the refractory will go around them when I pour it. And in case it does shrink, it won't be able to slide out. So I'm going to get set up to cast the refractory, and then we'll put the liner in it and finish this project. Okay, what I've done is I've rounded up my refractory mixing compound. I got a piece of plate. This is shrink wrap film. It's for my shrink wrap machine from when I had artist canvas. And what I do is I lay that on there because the refractory has a tendency to want to stick to metal, which is cool, except when you take it loose from the, when you go to lift the top off of the plate, it will break chips out of it, and it doesn't hurt it any, it just doesn't look good. So what I've got is I've got a pre-measured amount. I just make 6 times this. I do 5 tops at a time, and if I'm doing 15, I do 15 of them, and then take them in and put them in the White's oven and cook them for 5 hours. I started out when I cure it at about 200 degrees, and what I found is the paper cup will not combust in the White's oven and set off the smoke detector and get me in trouble. So one of the things about mixing the refractory, I'm trying to wait for this to cool down a little bit, because being that shrink wrap film, it'll just shrink right up. So I'll do it this way. I'll get the tools out of there. It's just nothing but a spoon and a flat bar. Okay, we'll just take that. It's not going to hurt a thing. And cool it down quite nicely. Okay, set that on there. We set the paper cup in there, and that's where it will be. So the next trick number 1 is going to be to mix some water. So because I do this all the time, I haven't even been paying attention to the camera. I've probably been, all this blabber probably had the camera blocked. What a fool. I took about half of this scooper with water, and I'm just going to put it in there, and then I'm going to start mixing. This is going to be more on the drier side than on the wet side. just as long as it's workable. It's just kind of a... It's not soupy. It's... That looks just about right. So now, what I do is I center that paper cup right in the middle. And then start working it around. Because once you get it worked around, then it holds the paper cup pretty much captive. It's a little easier to do. And as long as it's still moist, it lets you cover up. And then by doing the packing, it's making the surface that's going to meet the edges of the furnace smoother on the bottom. Okay, she's looking. And there you have it. Normally what I do is I let this sit out here for a day or two to let all the water run out. Let me see if I can zoom in. The water is starting to run out of the edges. That's why you don't want to overdo the water, because you're just gonna have to bake it out of there. And so I will bake this about an hour on 200 degrees, maybe 2 hours. And when it looks good and firm, then I'll take it out, squeeze this in, I'll push the paper out of it, then I set up to 375 and cook it for another 4 hours. And it's just... If you've ever gotten a torch near wet refractory, you find out that the refractory, the steam will build up and then it can blow pieces out of it. So the furnace, other than cleaning that up and painting it, is ready to go. So we'll take this and set it out of the way. This is what it's going to look like when it's done. And this is what the paper cup does. It's a bigger hole at the bottom. It makes a cone. It seems to help the gases. I don't know why. I'm probably just full of crap anyway. But anyway, they come out pretty nice. Your handle hooks right in the holes with some screws and wing nuts, and it makes a nice unit. And well, I'll tell you what, you can run that thing all day. The handle would, I don't have the eyes rolled in this one yet, but it would go right on it like so, and it makes a nice unit. Okay, so the KO wool, that's cool enough to touch. You take your bottom hockey puck, it isn't quite cold. That's not too bad. And you just lay it right in the bottom. And then to where your two torch clamps are, you take the KO wool, you roll it like so, and then right between the two of them, and what that does is it prevents the seam right here from being directly across, to where if there wasn't a crucible or something in the between there, it'd put the hot gases right on it. So I just make sure that the seam is between the two. Now this is longer than it needs to be because this was actually one of the first MicroMinis, and it was shorter. The barrel here was shorter, but being it's a giveaway, doesn't matter. And then that's your MicroMini. Top fits right on that, and great little furnace. They work really, really good. I'll show you my original. This is the dinosaur, but this was the first of the first. 1/4-inch plate bottom, 1/4-inch wall. Heavy duty, and this is the refractory. That's the original refractory. It's in chunks and pieces, and you know what? It works just fine. Why mess with it? Maybe someday I'll roll a new liner into that. But anyway, so what I do is when I've got them like this, then I just cut them down, which I naturally put my scissors on this thing. Didn't want to melt them with the dingleberry. But I just go in there and start in cutting, and then just let my scissors go right to the top of the metal. And other than poking the holes through, which I don't know, I put it, you just take like an X-Acto knife and you go right through there and just cut the holes out, or you can poke the scissors through and then take the back of a pin or something and just ream it out. But for the ones I sell, I go one step further. Might as well do it. What have I got to lose? This is Insulation. It's called Insul Tough, and it will harden up the insulation, which the only reason I do it is it just makes it last longer. It gives you a little more usage out of it. So I shake it up good, pour some in my pan. And then with a paintbrush, I dab it on. I mean, it will make this, it won't make it as solid as concrete, and it only makes the surface, unless you did what I did the other day just for giggles. I submerged the whole furnace in the stuff. I left it out here in the shop, and after 9 days it was still wet, so I ended up I had to bake it like 7 hours to get it dry. But then it was like a brick. It was just like refractory, except a lot lighter. And then I just paint the top down like that, which flattens it out. And, that's ready to bake. So that's the steps of making the MicroMini furnace. Once they're baked, that's when I normally put the holes through, and then I bring them out and paint them. So anyway, I might start selling these as a kit. So this is going to go along with as a DVD with it. So I'm out of here for today.